Hello everyone and welcome to another review from Class 47 Peter, and today we're here to look at a Bachmann model, as you can see. No prizes for guessing that. And today we are here to have a look at the GWR 4900 class, also known as the Hall, in this case the modified Hall. Now this model I bought during the Severn Valley's Spring Gala on the Saturday I went at Kidderminster a weekend or so ago. This particular one is 6937 Conygham Hall in the BR green livery with the lake crest. And what's special about this one is that the locomotive in real life is actually shown on the card insert on the box, as you can see. And that's not very often you come across that, where the exact model you get is pictured on the card insert on the front of the box. In this case, the real locomotive, of course. And this model I bought for about 70 quid, which is not too bad considering that this model is second hand, although I think the model has basically been unused. But it was second hand, it's just that the model, I'm assuming, has never been ran, because when I bought it I was told it was unused, so there we go. But anyway, I don't really care about that. Let's get on with the video. So first of all, we're going to open the box up, as we always do in these videos. So with the flap undone, we just take out the polystyrene tray, because this is the older style Bachmann packaging, not the newer style. So we put the box to one side, and then we remove the card insert. We have all the paperwork there, which we'll come on to in a minute, which they'll actually sellotaped onto the card insert. Never seen that before. But anyway, so here's the card insert that you don't get with the models anymore, and there's the picture of the real locomotive. We've got a drawing of the hall on the back and some brief history. Nowadays it's printed on the back of the boxes. Pause and read that if you want to, I'm not going to stop you. Now we come on to the paperwork. So first of all we have the guarantee that I don't really tend to bother with, but it's there anyway. Then we have the Collector Club flyer. I am in the Bachmann Collectors Club, so I don't really need to bother with that for a little while longer, until the thing runs out, then I probably would rejoin it, but there we go. And now we have the exploded diagram, or the instructions, I should say, for the model. The idea with this is, if you lose a part, you can go into Bachmann's website and order them, hence why there are little numbers at the side of the parts. So it's like a spare sheet sort of thing. So for example, if a part gets damaged or missing, whatever, you just simply email them the number of the particular product item, and then they'll just send it to you, if they have it in stock. Next we come on to the little detail parts that are in with the model, in two separate sealed bags. And to be honest, you don't really get much. All you get are two brake rods, one to fit under the tender and one to fit under the loco. But the detail part's now covered. We will now get the model out of the polystyrene tray, wrapped in these foam sheeting of some sort. Obviously I'm removing it carefully from the box. Then we take the tender out. Then the tray can be put to one side. And then we remove the foam sheeting from both the loco and the tender, and we are now free to have a look at the model in detail again. But before we come on to the detail, I'm going to talk about the weight of the model. And this model is very heavy. There's a lot of weight in it, so you're not going to have any problems with traction or problems with the model pulling any trains. It should be able to pull them with ease, and that is why we need the weight, because we don't get traction tyres on models anymore, or at least we shouldn't, because the weight provides that traction. Moving on to the detail now, so we'll begin with the sprung buffers that the model is fitted with. Don't have much care for this feature personally, but they're there anyway. On the front of the Loco we have a slim tension lock coupling, which is NEM, so you can take it out if you want to and swap it with another, or even a KD, which you can do. And also you can just about see the guard irons there, which is a nice little detail to have. We also have a coupling hook and the typical GWR styled vacuum pipe or brake pipe, whichever you choose to call it, fitted on the model. That bit of the brake pipe there could be done with painting red, because in reality some of it is painted red on the bit that is on the buffer beam, and the pipe itself is just black, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, it still looks nice and it's still there. And we can't leave out all the rivets on the buffer beam. Just look at that. That is a brilliant bit of detail to have, because it adds to more, makes the model look more realistic and more like the real thing. Moving on to the running board, we have again lots of rivets, and we have some separately fitted lamp irons as well. We now move on to the smokebox door, in which we have a separately fitted lamp iron. This curious bit of detail that I have no idea what it's for, but it's there anyway. We have a shed code for 81E, which is the shed code for Didcot, which I have been to in reality, which is now of course the Didcot Railway Heritage Centre. Recommend you go there because it is ace. And as well as the smokebox door hinges, we also have separately fitted smokebox door darts, or handles, whichever you choose to call them. And of course we have the locomotive's running number on the number plate, 6937, printed on the front of the smokebox door. We have a very nice chimney, which I do believe this is the copper cap chimney, or it could be made of brass, I don't know, but it's there and it's really nice. You could add a smoke generator unit in it if you wanted, but I don't bother doing that, but it's there for you to do. Moving on to the side of the smokebox now, we have loads of rivets, as you can see, and we have pipework, as you can see just down the side there. That little bit of detail just on the edge of the smokebox, you know which bit I'm talking about. It goes down to the outside steam pipe, as you can see there. We can't leave out the separately fitted metal handrail, which runs down alongside the locomotive's boiler, goes up and around the front of the smokebox door, and down the other side again, as you can see. Superb bit of detail to have. Moving on to the cylinders, which we have the drain cocks fitted underneath them, as you can see. There are also some rivets there, which you can just about see, and there's also some nice lining on them too. Then we come on to all the outside moving parts, the valve gear, the link motion and the side rods. It's all connected up as you see on the real locomotive, so it's all accurate, and I can't wait to see all that moving on the model just like you do on the real thing. We also have some sanding gear, which is made of metal. Do be careful with this because it can be fragile and it can bend out of place, and that can cause running problems, so do be careful. Just a heads up there. Moving on to this cab footstep, we've got some rivets on it, and behind there we've got some nice pipework detail, and again another sanding gear. Moving on to the lining on the boiler. Just look at the lining, it's just beautiful, no other word for it. Moving back to the running board, you can see we have two lamp irons at the side here of the smoke box. Them are just used to store lamps on. We also have the outside steam pipes as well. And there is some daylight visible under the boiler as well, which is nice, and there is a little bit of detail in there as well. We also have the wheel splashes as well, and what I love about these is that not only do you get the lining in the wheel splashes, but on the outside you have some gold lining as well, which looks really nice, and it adds to the detail as well, which makes this livery even more superb. Moving on to the firebox, we have some rivets there, as you can just about see, and what are washout plugs. We have loads of rivets on the running board as well, as you can see. Again, adds to the detail and makes the model look more realistic. We have the typical GWR style safety valve that's painted gold, and you have the pipe work, that comes down on the outside of it, and that looks really nice. And again, it adds to the detail. We've even got some lining on that pipework on the outside of the safety valve as well, which blends in well with the lining on the boiler bands. We also have glazing in the cab windows, as we'd expect. And we have the whistles as well, which are separately fitted and are painted gold, which look really nice. And we have the whistle guard behind them as well. Moving on to the cab roof, which has loads of rivets, as you can see. There are loads of rivets on the side of the cab, some nice lining, and the locomotive's running number, 6937, the typical number plates that you get. And also there's a nice gold trim around the window there, and a separately fitted handrail fitted under there. And again, glazing in the side cab windows, as we'd expect. We also have the separately fitted metal handrails down the sides of the cab, which again is a very nice detail to have, and it's on the real halls, so that's a good bit of detail. Then we have the drawbar connector, which has these two holes in it, so that's to connect the loco to the tender. We have the two holes in there because, well, one is for close connection, the other is to have a little bit of a space between the loco and the tender. Wouldn't personally recommend the close coupling because it will cause a locomotive to derail and bends, or even fall off the track. The detail on the cab floor is very nice, and also on the rear buffer beam, on the rear of the loco, you can see some rivets there. And rear buffer beam is what it's called. And just look at all the detail that's inside the cab. You have the regulator, the lever, the gauges, the dials, all the brass pipework. It's all painted up and it looks superb, and again like the real thing, and it adds to the detail. And it makes this model feel like it's the real thing when you're looking inside there. Moving on to the livery application now, that is just superb. The shade of green is spot on, the lining is all crisply printed, and there's no errors in the paint, there's no marks or any other errors of any sort. It's all a nice even fine coat of paint, which is what we want to see, and it looks fantastic. And then we'll move on to the other side of the model, because there are some different details there that are worthy of mentioning in this review. First of all, we have the pipework that runs alongside the boiler where the handrail is. On this side we have the reversing lever and the mechanism for it. We have some extra detail fitted, which it's either again mechanism for the reversing lever or pipework of some sort, but either way it's there and it looks really nice. On this side of the loco you don't get lampines on the side of the smokebox door on the running board, but you do have some extra pipework though going down to the outside steam pipes. On the other side just get the one. Then you have this little bit of detail, which I have no idea what it is, but there is some nice rivet detail on it. Is it like to act as a step so the crew can climb up onto the running boards and up to the top of the loco? I don't know, but it's there and it looks nice. And you have this extra detail as well, where the valve gear is, as you can see. Again, no idea what this detail is either, or what it's for, but it's there and it looks nice. Something I forgot to mention, this is for both sides, there's some rivets on the running plate. We now move on to the tender, which I have actually had some problems with derailing on the bends. This problem has now been sorted. It was to do with the track being raised up slightly, which is now nailed down on the bends, but it now does have the tendency to the front wheel to very lift up ever so slightly off the rails, but it doesn't cause any derailments. But other than that you don't really seem to notice unless you get up to it right close. But it might also improve over time, because it could also be a case that the drawbar connector isn't as loose, and so it'll probably loosen up over time, and that'll probably solve the problem. But it has stopped derailing though now, which is what I'm glad of. But just thought I'd point that out. The frames of the tender have some excellent detail. There's a few rivets there, and you've got the axle boxes and the springs. and those little bits of detail for the brake rods to fit into. We also have rivets on the tender footsteps as well, which is very nice and again makes the model look more realistic. We have loads of rivets on the tender, and this is the Churchwood tender, by the way, because the Churchwood tender is the one that has the rivets. We also have some beautiful crisp lining, and again accurate livery application that's all very nice and neat and finely applied. And we have the GWR Lake crests beautifully printed on the side of the tender. And just look at the detail on them as well. We also have some separately fitted handrails on the sides of the tender. And it's the same on the back of the tender as well. Again, more separately fitted metal handrails. Moving on to the front of the tender, which on the tender buffer beam we have the tender buffers made of metal, not sprung, but we don't really need them to. And also there's some rivets there as well. And that gap in the middle, that's for the drawbar to fit into, so it can have the tender connected to the loco basically. And we have lots of other details on the faceplate of the tender, some storage cabinets and a few handles to transfer the water from the tender to the boiler, and coal in the front chute there as well. We've also got a water filler cap that doesn't open up, but then again it doesn't need to, because then if it did the model would probably be more expensive. But it's a nice bit of detail to have all the same. As you can see, we do have coal in the tender, but it's not removable. However, you can scatter your own real coal load on top of it, so all is not lost. We also have this channel of some sort at the side of the tender. I do believe it's to store fire irons in and things like that. Moving on to the rear of tender, we have a lot of detail on the back, as you can see. We have a brake pipe fitted and some separately fitted lamp irons as well. An M coupling on the back, rivets on the buffer beam and a separately fitted coupling hook. And then we have this, which I believe it's supposed to be a builder's plate of some sort, but slight downside to that is it's not painted and there's no writing on it. Whether it's supposed to be like that in reality, I don't know, but I do believe it should be painted gold at least, or some brass colour, and have writing on it that tells you where it was built and the year it was built and all that. There's also plenty of rivets as well, and these little details as well, which you can see on the back of the tender that they run diagonally, and they act as steps so the crew can climb up to the top of the tender. Very nice detail to have there. And on the other side of the tender, again lots of rivets, light crest and crisp lining, and again the same detail on the tender frames as well. Now underneath the tender, as you can just about see, we have a water scoop, which was designed to pick up water from the troughs many years ago. I have actually since removed this bit of detail though, since after taking this picture, because I initially thought this to be the cause for the tender derailing. But I might glue it back on at some point, but then again you're never going to really notice the scoop anyway, under the tender, especially in my videos, so there we go. But either way, it's there and it does look fairly nice. And this little bit of detail here, this little piece of plastic, you can see, you know which bit I'm talking about, it's right next to the screw. That's for the drawbar connector to fit onto, so essentially just slot a hole over it. Now we come on to the running of the model, and as you can see, the model ran smoothly around the layout. No grinding noises, motors burning out or stuttering movement, or jerky movement, however you choose to refer to it. The model ran smoothly and faultlessly around the layout, as it's what we'd expect when we receive models like this straight out of the box. They should run as they do, as shown in this video. now come on to the loaded test run for the hall, and as you can see, it is pulling the rake of centenary coaches around the layout, which there's a rake of 7 of them here, and this just shows why the weight is so important with these models, because without the weight this model wouldn't be able to pull any of them. So overall, I think the Bachmann GWR Modified Hall is a great model. Yes, I know I have had a problem with the tender derailing, and it would be nice if the coal load was removable, but it's not really much of a problem as such. But other than that, it's still a great model, and I would recommend you get one, if you see one. Definitely worth getting, and they make a great addition to your layout. Especially if you have a rake of GWR coaches, and that just looks stunning and makes a great train. So overall, I'm going to rate the Bachmann Modified Hall a 9 out of 10. This has been Class 47 Peter reviewing Conygham Hall, and I'll see you again soon for the next review. I won't tell you what it is I'm going to be reviewing, but until then, take care, and hope you've enjoyed this review.